Matt and I are going to plant some tomatoes today. As you can see behind me, they've got so big. It's really, we should have already had them in the ground, but you know how it is. Weather and other obligations kind of get in the way sometimes. So today we're doing that. And it's really exciting when you see your tomato plants this green and this big and this healthy. Every year when I start them, we have good luck with tomatoes. We're really blessed with that. But every year I think, oh, they're so little. They're never going to be big enough by the time warm weather gets here and it's time to plant them. And then all of a sudden, it just seems like overnight they start growing by inches overnight. So these are ready definitely to put in the ground, and I will show you how we do it. There's lots of videos about planting tomatoes, and people have different opinions, and that's okay. That's how it should be. Everybody just needs to find their own way to do it. I'm excited about seeing how those new ones that I've tried this year, how they do. But I'm also excited about the old standbys, the Mountain Princess and the Cherokee Purple, the ones like that we grow every year. I was really concerned the first time that I planted, the first seeds that I planted. If you've a regular viewer, you'll remember this, that my little orange Tommy toe of Carolyn and David, not one come up, not one. So I replanted them. They're only about this big so far, so I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer to plant them outside. But this time they all come up. And what that's led me to wonder is if I really didn't plant them. Like I wrote on the cups, and you know, what I thought that I had planted them, and I watered them all that time, but really I'd never actually planted the seed. That's what I'm thinking, because I planted the exact same seed, and now every one of them come up. And it is unusual for me to plant seeds, like if I plant several of one variety and not one of them come up. So I'm beginning to think that that's what happened, that I just didn't actually ever plant them. So Matt's already busy planting on this big bed. This is where we're going to put our Cherokee Purple. That's our favorite tomato to grow. Matt's favorite, Granny and Paul's favorite to eat. We all just really love it, and it usually does really good for us. This is our third year using the cattle panels to train the tomatoes up as they grow bigger, and we really love them. I don't think we would ever want to do away with them. They've just worked out so well. In the past, we would use baskets like tomato cages, and we've done different kind of elaborate where you put some stakes, and Matt's actually back here, I'll show you in a minute where our grow bag's at. He's actually done that, where kind of stake each end and then stretch either wire or string or something and let the tomatoes kind of weave up through them. We've tried lots of different things over the years, but the cattle panels work so well. We do still use our baskets. We had so many over the years, so we do still use them in one bed that we don't have a cattle panel in, and it's kind of a smaller bed, so we will still be utilizing those in one part of our garden. What we used the grow bags along the greenhouse here for last year, and I think that's what we're going to do again this year, that was where we put some of those tomatoes that we were just trying. The Nebraska Wedding and a green stripe something. I can't remember exactly what the name of that was, but it was tomatoes that Katie had got me for Christmas, seeds, and I wanted to try them, but we turned out that we did not like them, so we won't be doing those again. But I think that that's what I'm going to do with those same grow bags, is I'm going to put those new ones that I'm trying this year, I'm going to put them in those bags, and that way I can kind of keep an eye on them, and we'll only plant maybe one or two to actually see whether we want to continue to grow them or not. So as I said, there's so many different ways to do tomatoes. Everybody has their own way to do it. And I don't remember who told me and Matt years ago when we first started gardening to put Epsom salt in the bottom of the hole, but that's what we do. I've seen where other people use bone meal and just different things. But we put Epsom salt, just a little handful, before we plant them. Now, if you notice, if you're an old gardener, you already know all this, but if you're a new gardener, you notice how deep Matt's planting it. Way up on the actual stem of the tomato, and that's because when you see tomato stems, if you look at them really close, you can see those little, see right there, there's a little hair looking place. You can see them all up and down through there. If those come in contact with dirt or water, they will root. That'll turn into roots. So if you plant it really deep, and you plant it like even up to there, and the rest of that's in the ground, when all those little roots come in contact with the dirt, that gives you more chance of your tomatoes developing a really strong root system, which is what you want for good growth. In the same way, as the summer goes on and you begin to get little suckers kind of in the joints there, that you can remove those and root them and plant them, because again, tomatoes root very easily. So Papa Tony told us when he was a boy, and like I said, there's just so many different ways of doing tomatoes, but when he was a boy growing up in the mountains of Appalachia, nobody, his family at least, did not stake their tomatoes. They let them sprawl and grow where they would. Well, as they grow along the ground like that, then they would just root at every point. They would do that. And that was how they chose to grow their tomatoes. And if you let nature take its course, that's what would happen. I do think it's better to stake them just for the fact that it prevents your fruit, your tomato, from laying on the ground, low-hanging fruit kind of, where animals and things like that can actually get to them. So some of the new varieties that we're trying that Matt's planting back there in those grow bags, well, one of them's not new. One of them is cream and sausage. That's like a yellow tomato, kind of a elongated looking tomato, very kind of narrow, you know, not really thick. And we grew it years ago. For many years we grew it, and I saved seed every year. I found it in a local place, Christian Love Ministries, Renewed Hope Ministries it is now, and it was just an old heirloom variety. So as I said, we saved the seeds and I grew it for many years until finally one year my seeds, the seed that I saved had cross-pollinated. So it turned out to be a tomato, and it was an okay tomato, but it was nothing like the cream and sausage. So I was really excited this past winter when I seen that Michigan gardener, M.I. Gardner, that he had cream and sausage seeds for sale. So I'm really excited about getting those seed back and just having that tomato again, because it's a really tasty one. Another new one that we're trying is Speckled Roman. I think that it's the same. It's an elongated red, bigger than the cream and sausage, with yellow markings on it. And I believe it's the same tomato that my friend Teddy grew a few years ago, and we were able to eat a lot of them, and we really liked them. So I'm hoping that that's it and that it does good for us. Two other ones that we're trying are Golden Nugget and Yellow Gooseberry. And last year, the new ones that I tried, none of them worked out. I wouldn't grow any of them again unless I had to. I've saved the seed. Of course, if I needed to, I could grow them. But we just didn't care for them, and they didn't do that well. So I said I was not going to try anything new. Just wasn't going to do it. But of course, during those cold winter months when I was looking at all the seed catalogs that come in the mail, I was wooed by buying and trying new tomatoes. And so those two, the yellow ones, they're both little tomatoes, tomatos as we would call them. So we're going to try those, and I hope those do good for us too. So in this bed that you can see right here, this one, there's a lower one, that's our asparagus bed, one of our asparagus beds. It's got asparagus growing in it right now. But this upper one, that's usually where we put our tomatos, one variety of them. And we'll use the cages, the tomato cages that we've had for so many years, we'll use those right there. So the ones that we plan to plant there this year will probably be a combination of Juliet, that's what we would call a tomato, but kind of an elongated one, and then the black cherry. Black cherry we've grown for a long time. We really love it. It's a little tomato, but it's got that same like dark hue that Cherokee purple does, and it's a really great flavor, and that's one of our favorite ones to grow, and it's always really prolific for us. So now we've moved down to the lower part of the garden where we'll plant the rest of the tomatoes. Actually, we have a few more to plant up there, odds and ends, but this will be the majority of them. And the ones that we're planting down here are some of those tried and true ones that we always grow, Mountain Princess and Arkansas Traveler. We did not grow Arkansas Traveler last year, though. I replaced it with something new, trying something new, one of those that we didn't like. So we're going back to the tried and true Arkansas Traveler. We have two cattle panels down here, so that's, again, we're training the tomatoes up the cattle panels as they grow, and we just found that works so very well for us. Such a good feeling to have the tomatoes in the ground. Now we have to go back and water them all, and we'll continue to water them for the next few days. I think we're supposed to get rain in about 2 days. So on those days, of course, we won't water them. And if the rain kind of continues for a day or two and they look good, then we won't water them. We won't water them unless it just gets drastically dry. And we live in an area that typically gets a lot of rain, so most of the time we don't have to hand water except on the days right after we plant, just in those first few days. So we ended up planting, I think Matt said 68 tomato plants. That's a different variety, a wide variety, from the paste ones to the big Cherokee purple to the little Tommy toes that we just love to eat out of hand. I have a few more in there. Of course, I have Carolyn and David's. When they get big, I've got to plant them somewhere, but they're only about that big right now. But there's a few more places in the garden where I can stick some of the, like the Tommy toes. And then the other tomatoes I will share with Granny. Of course, I will plant her some. And then Corey and Austin will plant some at their house this year. If it gets down to where we have, 5, 6, 10 left and we're done planting and Granny's done and Corey and Austin's done, we can always find someone who takes them. There's people that Matt work with, they often take them. Last year we even gave some to a person that we used to work with. So we said, hey, we'll leave them at the gate early in the morning, Matt will, and you pick them up. So we can always find a home for them. And it really gives us a good feeling to be able to share plants with others like that. Most people don't have a greenhouse, and it's kind of hard to start tomatoes on a large scale like we do unless you have a place like that. So you may be asking, why in the world do we grow so many tomatoes? Well, we love tomatoes. We eat a lot of tomatoes. During the summer when they start coming in, we eat tomatoes every day, whether it's a tomato sandwich, a salad, just out of hand, maybe with some salt. We love tomatoes, and I like to put up tomatoes. We can a lot of tomatoes, and then in the winter we can use them for all kinds of sauces and soups and things like that. Of course, you could make tomato juice. You can make, sometimes I've made spaghetti sauce, and we always make salsa. So we use them in a lot of different ways. In my research about Appalachia, I'll often come across something from many, many years ago, over 100 years ago or something like that, about people who didn't like tomatoes. Maybe someone sharing their memories of their father or their mother or whoever that said that they did not allow tomatoes in their house. They thought they were poison. That was a common kind of train of thought in those days, not just in Appalachia, I'm sure in other places too. But certainly that's not true for us. We love tomatoes, although I know some people have difficulty eating them. We do not. But when I was younger, I guess it wasn't that I didn't like them. I just couldn't see the purpose of like just eating one out of hand in the garden like you would an apple or something. And one time one of my aunts was teasing me about that, and she said, well, if you don't like tomatoes, then you must not really be a Wilson. So she was saying that Wilsons really love tomatoes. And that's certainly true for the ones in my family, Pap and Paul. Paul loves the Cherokee purple like we do. And it's just something that we really enjoy. But the main enjoyment for me is being able to actually start the seed and nourish it, and then watch it, take care of it, and watch it get to those big, where I'm like, Matt, we got to plant this. It's growing out of the cup. We've got to do something about this. So that just brings such a joy to be able to grow food for your family, of course, for the sustenance of your body, but also being able to know that what you're eating is really healthy. So I hope that you enjoyed seeing how Matt and I plant tomatoes. Like I said, there's so many different ways, and there's really no wrong or right way if you ask me. You just have to find the way that works best for you. And like those Epsom salts, whoever told us that many, many years ago, and we had good tomatoes, so we've just always kept doing that. We usually have really good tomato plants that produce really well for us. But maybe you have a different trick. Please share that in the comments. And as always, I hope you'll continue to drop back by to help me celebrate Appalachia, which is a whole lot of growing food for your family.